Hi, my name is Cathryn Taylor. I'm a licensed practitioner and I'm the author of the Inner Child Workbook. And I want to just take a minute and just talk to you about the inner child. I'm creating a variety of videos that will bring forth the combination of my inner child expertise and Gary Craig's emotional freedom techniques, the tapping. That combination is a beautiful combination to really set your intentions and to deal with what Gary calls the tail enders and I call the saboteurs. The saboteurs are basically the inner children. The inner child is just a way to personify the feelings that you've brought into adulthood from childhood. Anytime that you are in interaction with your environment, whether it be with a group of people or just one individual, and something in that interaction triggers you, you can collapse into the coping mechanisms of that younger part of self. So even though you're standing in an adult body, it's very easy to feel about this tall. At those moments in time, you have basically plummeted back into the reality of that inner child. That situation in which you are involved carries the same emotional frequency, the same vibration as that little inner child experienced in a moment of trauma or in the middle of a wound. So when there's that resonance between your adult life and what you experienced as a child, there is a merger. The past and present collide, and you're standing in that situation, in the adult body, operating from the emotional state of that younger self. Now, inner child work teaches you how to separate from that inner child, how to recognize that you can respond to that inner feeling instead of just collapse into it. You can move from being a victim to it to really being a comforter of it. Now, I want to just give you an idea of how to even recognize if you are triggered by an inner child. Usually, you will have some sort of just emotional meltdown. If you are tracking on what I would call the infant issues, then those may emerge in the areas of the heart. The infant is the aspect of you who carries your fear of abandonment. So you're going to experience infant issues. Those issues you experienced in that developmental stage of life, if your immediate needs were not met, those are going to get projected into your intimate relationships. Issues that have to do with boundaries, issues that have to do with setting your limits, those may reflect what you experienced as a toddler between the ages of 18 months and 36 months. Issues of shame and guilt, issues of curiosity, issues with the body, that may reflect what you experienced between the ages of 3 to 6, because it is at that time in our lives when we first experience the ability to conceptually understand how to act in such a way that we win the approval of the adults in our lives. We know what it means to feel shame, and we have the cognitive ability to adjust our behavior accordingly. 6 to 12-year-old issues tend to have to do with competition, things that we experience during that time of our lives. Feeling included, feeling excluded, our ability to begin and complete projects can be housed in that stage of development. The one that I found as I've been working with people over the last 20 years with these issues, 22 years actually, is that the 6 to 12-year-old can carry our loyalty to our parents. 6 to 12 is when we first leave our home and go into a public environment and we begin to compare. Now, for the children of today, that's much younger. But for anybody who's over 40, most of us started school in the kindergarten, so that was 5 or 6. That was the first time that we could compare what we had as opposed to what others had. So there's a family loyalty that can get really lodged in there, and we have to deal with that inner child who doesn't want us to succeed because he or she doesn't want us to excel beyond our parents. The reason is if we exceed and we pass our parents, then we become the experts of our own lives. And that inner child is still striving to win the approval of the parent. If you exceed and if you surpass them, it never has a hope of doing that. So we really have to dislodge that inner child's loyalty. Help that inner child grieve and give up that parent and give up that hope. In the teenage years, think of the teenage years as just a revisitation of the infant issues, the toddler issues, and the 3 to 6-year-old issues. The 13 to 15-year-old experiences that contrast between self-acceptance and self-confidence and self-consciousness. That's the time where we're dealing with shame, but we're dealing with it with respect to peers more than internal sense of shame. Shame is when we don't feel good enough. Well, all of a sudden we're comparing ourselves against our peers, our other adolescents. 15 to 17-year-old is that active rebellion stage. Whatever we did not learn as a toddler about limits, we're going to reenact during the 15 to 17-year-old stage. 17 to 21-year-old stage is where we're really doing gender-based issues, and if you're sitting there saying, I don't know who I want to be when I grow up, that's the 17 to 21-year-old. If you're stuck in rebellion, if you go to work and your boss triggers that, authority issue, you're dealing with the 15 to 17-year-old. If you're afraid to go into new ventures, you might be dealing with the 13 to 15-year-olds. So this is a brief kind of overview, introducing you to those possible issues. Again, I invite you to visit my website. I've got a lot of different applications of these issues. I'm creating a series of videos that will help you combine this material with EFT sequences that will help you neutralize that. So I really hope that this has been useful, and I thank you for your interest.